going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz, Phoenix, the YWC Rally Check, and we're gonna do a little bit of fantasy booking because I got bored over the past couple of days. Kind of bummed about the reaction to SummerSlam that I can't exactly disagree with, so I thought, okay, I'll do something different, do something creative, do something to take my mind off of the letdown that was SummerSlam. Although we came back up with Raw, I think. Payback should be alright. And I thought, after SummerSlam, the two biggest groups that I am a fan of, both the Bloodline and the Judgment Day, the two best things in the WWE, didn't have a good night at SummerSlam. So why don't I talk about a different group, or a different group that could be. So tonight's not about the Judgment Day, tonight's not about the Bloodline, tonight's not about the LWO or Imperium or the Schism or the OC or anybody like that. Instead, you guys see what it says on the title. I haven't written it yet because I'm recording it right now, but it'll be something along the lines of fantasy booking, the new Hurt Business. Now, what I have to address before we get into any of this is MVP's comments on Twitter, back when it was still Twitter, a couple months ago, because people were fantasy booking the Hurt Business, and he, in my opinion, took it the wrong way. He's allowed to have his opinion. Obviously, he's got a friggin' whole career in the industry. Who am I to tell him what to think? I think his take is a bit off. I think his take that anytime people want to fantasy book a new Hurt Business, it's just because wrestling fans are simple-minded and they're prejudiced and they want to put all kinds of similar people in a group. I mean, similar comments were made about the New Day, similar comments were made about the Nation of Domination back in the day. Where I think he misses the trick is, if people are fantasy booking something you were involved in, then they liked it enough, they were involved enough to want to either see it or see a new version of it or see it come back. So there's a big part of me that says to MVP, and this is not a dig at MVP, please take the compliment, because MVP was the guy that held that group together. Bobby Lashley's awesome. Alexander Benjamin, awesome. Incredibly underutilized in WWE. But that thing was sort of held together. He was the Paul Heyman of that group, and I mean that in every respectful way possible. But also, everybody that has fantasy booked a new Hurt Business, and I'll talk about the group that I've put together here tonight, we haven't just gone through the Wikipedia, we haven't just gone through the WWE Superstar page and said, well, you and you and you look alike, why don't you make a team? Other companies have done that. WWE has done it in the past. What I've built tonight, and what we're going to talk about tonight, is all based on kayfabe, part of the storyline, part of the canon, interactions that we have seen on WWE programming recently. So, I don't want to think that this is any other statement on the old Hurt Business. I don't want anybody to think that this is a statement against MVP's statements, even though I don't agree with them. This is just what I think we can do. And it was kind of, I figured I might as well do it now because it was kind of confirmed that they're at least starting something last week when Bobby Lashley showed up with the Street Profits on SmackDown to attack some people, and it was supposed to be this big heel reveal, but they got cheered, so that's bad right off the bat. So we're going to build a huge faction in the vein of the Hurt Business. WWE, if they did this, probably wouldn't call it the Hurt Business, but it's basically Hurt Business 2.0. So look at any faction. Look at any faction across the board, from DX to Evolution to the Undisputed Era. Not necessarily the NWO, we don't need to go there. Legacy, I don't know. Even to a certain extent, like factions that didn't last very long, like the Ministry or the Authority or anything like that. Basically, you had one representative for every division available. One key example, and the best, most recent example that I can think of this, except for they didn't have a female in their group, was the Undisputed Era. Adam Cole, Bobby Fish, Kyle O'Reilly, Roderick Strong. You had your tag team champions, you had your mid-card title, you had your main champion. And while everybody else succeeded, that group was put together, like DX, like Evolution, like the Authority, to keep the main belt on the leader. So the leader in this case is obviously Bobby Lashley. I'm going to go through the group, then I'm going to go through some potential stories, and then I'm going to tell you how they fall apart. This is rough thoughts that I just want to share with you guys because I'm having a little bit of creative fun. This is by no means a completed beginning to end story arc. So if you're expecting that, might as well click off the video right now. Bobby Lashley, he's the leader, he's the gatherer, he's the guy building the group around him, he's the one that wants to be one of the world champions. And when I say one of, I'm going to say the same thing with the mid-card, etc. I don't care what brand they're on. I don't care what which world title they're going for, which mid-card title they're going for. I'm speaking very generically. Bobby Lashley is the guy that's going to build this group. He's going to be the leader. He's going to be the undisputed leader of the group. This is not a faction by committee. This is Bobby Lashley's faction. This is the Bobby Lashley Appreciation Society. I can say that because we just saw the JAS fall apart tonight on Dynamite. It's fine. This is built around him. This is built for him. This is for him to become a champion. Now, for him to become champion, you've got a lot of feuds to go through. Because if you're going to make him a world champion, he's going after Roman, depending on the time frame. He's going after Roman, he's going after Cody, he's going after Rollins, he's going after Balor. Now, if you want to sweeten the pot, once he puts his group together and he wants to establish his dominance, let him revisit a big sort of flagpole rivalry he had with somebody like a Brock Lesnar, to get himself built back up, because Brock Lesnar is really good at making other people look good right now. I mean, hell, he even made Cody Rhodes look good. And then, if you want to sweeten that pot even more, you want to get that golden nugget before you grab that golden back, bring in Cena for a night. Bring in Cena for a SummerSlam or a pre-WrestleMania pay-per-view, whatever. Get a Lesnar victory or a Cena victory under his belt. Get him in there with the challengers. Like I say right now, the challengers right now are like Cody Rhodes or a Finn Balor. And then you send him after a Roman Reigns or a Seth Rollins. Any of these matches are great. Put a big title on Bobby Lashley. Get a group together to help him get it. Get a group together to make him keep it. Now, how do you build your group? Much like the Bloodline had the right-hand man in Jey Uso, the guy that was going to be the elevated next main eventer, even though the whole main event Jey Uso thing was a little on the nose. And I'm going to NXT, and yes, when the NXT stars were on SmackDown that one week where they were in Florida, Bobby Lashley was in the back with these guys. He's bringing up Carmelo Hayes. Carmelo Hayes is the right-hand man. Carmelo Hayes is the anointed guy that's going to be, sort of, for lack of a better term, the underboss. He's going to be the mid-card champion, etc., etc. The bonus of that is by recruiting Carmelo Hayes, you also recruit his heavy Trick Williams. Now, to make this work, I'm kind of avoiding the fact that those two have parted ways on NXT. I'm treating them like they're still kind of a package, sorry. They're still Trick Mello Gang, or whatever they call themselves on NXT. But you get Carmelo Hayes as your right-hand man. A lot of charisma, a lot of personality. Great in the ring. He brings Trick Williams with him, who can be of use to the whole group, as we're going to talk about in a bit. But if he's going to be going for mid-card titles, and I've got a swath of mid-carders that he could go with, depending on who the mid-card champion is at the time, and I've got a couple of special exhibition matches that he could have as well. So watch out for that. Give me Carmelo Hayes versus Johnny Gargano, wherever the hell Johnny Gargano is right now. Give me Carmelo Hayes versus Tommaso Ciampa. If he's going for the IC title, Carmelo Hayes versus Gunther is a weird match that I want to look at. Carmelo Hayes versus Riddle, Carmelo Hayes versus Grayson Waller is some stuff that we had in NXT, I believe, before he came up. Wouldn't mind revisiting that. Carmelo Hayes versus Austin Theory would be a slam dunk because nobody likes Theory except me at this point, I think. Carmelo Hayes versus LA Knight would be an amazing microphone battle and then in-ring battle. Carmelo Hayes versus Ricochet, we've seen. I want to see it again. Carmelo Hayes versus Karrion Kross, just because I really like Karrion Kross, and I think Carmelo Hayes could elevate him, quite frankly. But then get into some sort of marquee, proving ground type matches that he can have. Put him in there with Logan Paul, put him in there with Bad Bunny, put him in there with Pat McAfee, and I will say, because we just did it recently with Grayson Waller, put Carmelo Hayes in there with Edge. Because Edge ain't going for any world titles anytime soon. Edge really is doing the grizzled old veteran, not to pick on another tag team in NXT. Edge versus Carmelo Hayes is another thing, one of those things where I'm like, I don't know how that would go, but I really want to look at it. Most likely, he'd be taking that title off of Theory. I don't think Carmelo Hayes is dethroning Gunther, so let's just say he picks up the U.S. title. But he's the mid-card champion. He's right at the side of Bobby Lashley. He's got Trick Williams, who's right at the side of him. The three of them are sort of the upper echelon of this group. Now, they were already spoken to on SmackDown. That relationship has already kind of been established. And when we talk about the next members, Bobby Lashley said he went to these next members that we're going to talk about on the word of Carmelo Hayes, if you go back to that backstage segment. Now, the next two members of the group, obviously, and it was most recently finally made official on SmackDown because they all came out together, and that's the Street Profits. Street Profits are not necessarily the right-hand men. They are the ones being sold the bill of goods by Bobby Lashley. Come along with me, it's going to be a sweet ride. They become kind of the foot soldiers in this thing, and they're the ones that are going to bring tag team gold to the ranks as well. Now, Montez Ford specifically brings something else that we're going to talk about in a second, but new heel Street Profits. New heel Street Profits. Give me them versus The New Day, who just came back. Give me them versus American Alpha. I am pitching until somebody listens for the reunion of DIY when Johnny Gargano comes back. Give me the Street Profits versus DIY. Oh, hell yes. Remember what they did on a ladder in NXT. Give me them versus any two of the Judgment Day. Give me them versus Giovanni Vinci and Ludwig Kaiser from Imperium. Give me them, although they're both injured right now, against the two tag team champions of Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. Give me them having some super athletic matches with teams like the Viking Raiders. Give me them in a, I don't know, super confident because we're not even looking past these particular competitors match against the Maximum Male Models who haven't been seen forever. Give me a really fun personalities clashing match between the Street Profits and Hit Row, and just because it would look really weird, give me the Street Profits versus Pretty Deadly. They would bring a whole lot of more charisma, more so Montez Ford than Angelo Dawkins. I hate to be like that, but it's just the case. Montez Ford brings a more hyper charisma to the group than somebody like a Carmelo Hayes does. Angelo Dawkins kind of mellows that out. They kind of even each other out that way. But also, because of the connection to Montez Ford, we have our last member, our final member, our only female member of the group, the one that's very, very clearly going to be a champion again sooner than later, and that's Bianca Belair. Is it a stretch? When you've already got the Street Profits there, you've already got her getting all frustrated and pissy because she can't hold a title for 5 minutes. She's not that far from a heel turn. The connection is there, and the connection has already connected to Bobby Lashley. So, I mean, she goes in there. If I'm booking it, you guys know, I'm not a big, gigantic fan of Bianca Belair, but she is athletic as hell. Put her in there with the, I don't know, the Indy Hartwells, the Candice LeRae's. Put her in there with Shotzi, because that's a cross in styles. Give her a match with Chelsea Green, because, you know, that tag team isn't going to be able to be a thing right now. You know, some of the lower tier that doesn't get used very often, like your Dana Brooks and your Nikki Crosses and all that kind of stuff. There's no NXT women's tag team champions either right now, so have her go up against Illidan or Alba Fire. I would say basically put her up against Charlotte again if you need to. Put her up against Asuka again if you need to. Io Sky is the current champion, so they'll have a match at some point. Kairi Sane is rumored to be coming back to the WWE. She's going to be teaming with Asuka, so maybe that'll be a tag team scenario. But, I mean, Bianca Belair and Kairi Sane wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. The only thing I would say, selfishly, and this is because of other things that I want for WrestleMania, just keep her away from Becky, Baszler, and Rhea, because I want that to be a separate thing for WrestleMania. That's just me. But, I mean, all things being equal, heel Bianca Belair versus Becky Lynch wouldn't be terrible. I'd have her run up close on somebody like Baszler or Ripley and not quite beat her, but the women's championship on SmackDown, throw it on Bianca Belair for the sake of them doing the Golden Prophecy bit. Everybody carries a title except for Trick Williams, who's basically seen as a bodyguard, as a heater, as a diesel to their Shawn Michaels, etc. It's fine, and it's understood that he is seen that way, so that him not holding a title at this particular moment would be fine. Now, you've got your main title sorted. You've got your mid-card title sorted. You've got and all the competitors that go with it. You've got your tag team titles sorted with all the competitors that go with it. You've got your women's title sorted with all the titles that go with it. What does Trick Williams do? Well, like I said, Trick Williams is the Diesel. Trick Williams comes out with everybody. Trick Williams comes out there with the Street Profits when they have a tag team title defense and stands in the corner looking bigger than anybody else in the ring. Trick Williams comes out with Carmelo Hayes because that's his boy, and we understand that within this big unit, the two of them are a unit. Trick Williams, for all intents and purposes, if you've got a pay-per-view where the Street Profits get taken out earlier on in the night because they have a rough match, send Trick Williams out to be the bodyguard for Bianca Belair because she's got a title defense later on in the night. But also, when they want to show something different, when they want to break away from the charismatic, acrobatic, super athletic stuff and prove that they also have a bullet in their gun for monster matches, you send Trick Williams up against Sheamus. You send Trick Williams up against Drew McIntyre. You send Trick Williams up against Bronson Reed. And if the combination of the Judgment Day that's taking on the Street Profits is Finn Balor and Dominic Mysterio, for example, then that frees up Trick Williams versus Damian Priest, which wouldn't be terrible. I'm just saying. Now, give me Trick Williams versus Rhea Ripley, but we don't live in that world. Now, the bigger, funner thing about all of this, funner, I used funner as a word, is you also have entire group battles. You've got Survivor Series opponents set up. You've got multi-person matches set up. You've got potentially War Games scenarios set up here. Because look at all the factions you've got. You can throw the rumored Ilya Dragunov in with Imperium and do War Games with Imperium. You can throw Drew McIntyre back in with the Brawling Brutes again and, you know, have a War Games with them. You can have trios matches with the OC, which would free up Mia Yim to take on Bianca Belair in a side feud. You can have trios matches or a War Games match with the LWO, which would free up Zelina Vega to feud with Bianca Belair. You can have the Judgment Day in trios matches. And yes, you can put Bianca Belair up with Rhea Ripley at the same time, or have them be mixed tag matches. But I'm just saying, just don't take the title off Rhea Ripley, because I'm not fantasy booking that far. But you've got all the group dynamics you can do that sort of mark those matches throughout the year as well. If you've got a group this big and Elimination Chamber comes around and you can get 3 members of your group into the Elimination Chamber, you are half the match. That's great. Power in numbers and all that weird stuff. I said it during the when I was talking about Carmelo Hayes' potential opponents, but also a good potential opponent for Trick Williams would be Karrion Kross. I would really like to look at that as well. If for nothing else than the fact that people don't give Karrion Kross any credit, and I think Karrion Kross and Trick Williams would be a hell of a match. Now, out of all of those, you got your main title, you've got your mid title, you got your tag titles, you got your women's title, you got your monster in the back pocket, you've got your faction warfare. One other story comes back and bites us all in the ass, and I mentioned this at the beginning. I mentioned this before I even started the fantasy booking, and that does come back to MVP. When these guys are at their height, when they're ruling over everything, picture it on SmackDown, I guess, once the bloodline is completely dead. MVP eventually comes out and confronts Bobby Lashley and talks about, yeah, you know, I used to be your manager. I brought about the original Hurt Business. I brought you to the the Promised Land the first time, which is the only thing that made you believe that you could even have anything like this right now. You know, I moved on from you to somebody better, and now you've created all this because of me. He brings out Omos to face Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley's like, I don't have time for this shit. I got a hired gun for this. You get Omos versus Trick Williams. Fucking awesome. That fails. MVP goes and tucks tail and has to run. He goes and recruits more people. He goes and recruits 2 more familiar names from Bobby Lashley's past, and that is Cedric Alexander, Shelton Benjamin. As I said, 2 of the most underutilized individuals and one of the most underutilized tag teams that WWE has ever had, Benjamin and Alexander. But they run up on the Street Profits, and then they run up on Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams, and then the 2 of them and Omos run up on any combination of those 4 guys in a trios match because Bobby Lashley has better things to do because he's the champion. Now that MVP's, you know, I don't know, Hurt Business 3.0 fails against Bobby Lashley's golden faction. Absolutely fine. The only way this faction can fall now is from within. Bobby Lashley's the champion. He is defined by his championship. He's defined by the people around him also being champions. So what happens? Street Profits run up on somebody. I don't know, brand new call-up from NXT comes up. The Creed Brothers come up. Or the Grizzled Young Veterans or somebody and snatch those tag team titles off of them. And he's so disheartened and he's so, mind blown by the fact that somebody in his circle could lose gold, because he's so defined by gold at this point, that he says, no, you guys are benched. I'm going to get the other guys, your other two brothers over there, brothers within the group, before anybody loses their shit. I'm going to send Trick and Mello to get those titles and bring them back to the faction. Now, this does a couple of things, because it starts a rivalry between Carmelo and Trick and the Street Profits, but also it sets two different stories in place where Carmelo Hayes could potentially be a double champion, and Trick Williams, for the first time ever in the existence of this faction, can become a champion for the first time. So they get the tag team titles. The two of them fight the Street Profits. There's civil war within this Hurt Business 2.0, and Bobby Lashley can't fucking handle it. And because they're at each other's throats so much, another team comes in like a vulture and snatches those titles again. Carmelo Hayes still has his mid-card championship. Trick Williams is still in Carmelo Hayes' corner and whatever. The next thing to come down the pike, and there's a lot of people better than her, so it's going to happen sooner or later, Bianca Belair loses her championship. Now, this is going to come off as a bit sexist, and wrestling as a whole is a bit sexist, but everybody else that's frustrated, everybody else that's, feeling like a failure right now, everything else, all the other four guys that are really, really feeling up in arms right now because they collectively lost the tag team titles for this group, are now going to try and put all the attention on Belair. Maybe if we focus on Belair being a loser, then we won't look like losers and whatever. And their ultimate, what do you want to say? Test, or their ultimate solution is, well, if Bianca Belair's the loser, then we'll get rid of her and the rest of us can be winners. It creates a divide. It creates a divide within the group, not between the two tag teams, but between Montez Ford and everybody, because Montez Ford obviously wants to stick up for his girl. He turns to his longtime partner, Angelo Dawkins. Angelo Dawkins sort of takes one step to the left and lets him know that where his allegiances lie. And for a brief moment, you tease the singles babyface turn of Montez Ford. You let that idea linger for a couple weeks, let the fans sink their teeth into that, because already people wanted Montez Ford to go on a babyface singles run. But before the group can entirely fall apart, one man sort of does the Sami Zayn Peacemaker bit, look around, look at all the pieces on the chessboard, and see why they're really falling down. It's Carmelo Hayes. Carmelo Hayes looks at his friend. Carmelo Hayes looks at this other tag team within this little family that he's been warring with for weeks. He looks at Bianca Belair, who's distressed and without her championship and all that kind of thing. And of everybody in the group that's not Bobby Lashley, Carmelo Hayes is the only one with a championship. He realizes that the reason they're all killing each other is for the approval of Bobby Lashley, who's been succeeding on the backs of them. He realizes that, hey, I was over as a babyface. My buddy Trick was over as a babyface. The Street Profits were over as babyfaces. Bianca Belair, wildly enough, was over as a babyface. And now the whole world thinks we're assholes because we hitched our trailer to his truck so that he could be a world champion, so that he could be dressed in gold and surrounded by gold. And he puts his foot down and he says he's had enough. He goes to Adam Pearce behind Bobby Lashley's back and says, I'm surrendering my mid-card title for a chance at the big boy. Carmelo Hayes versus Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania for whatever world title Bobby Lashley holds. Bobby Lashley goes down, Carmelo Hayes goes up. This entire group is rebranded, reshuffled under the now leadership of Carmelo Hayes, babyface world champion, surrenders his mid-card title to a tournament. The tournament gets won by Trick Williams. He supports his buddy in picking up his first singles title. Collectively, their positivity and their reconnection with the fans or whatever rejuvenates the Street Profits. They get the tag team titles back, and hell, at this point, I don't even care. Bianca Belair with Montez Ford, hubby Montez Ford by her side, standing in her corner, goes up against whoever the women's champion is and gets it all back again. They reclaim all the gold in WWE that they can. They reclaim the Golden Prophecy with new life as a babyface faction under Carmelo Hayes, and they play it out for another year or so. I think it's awesome. Ultimately, the villain ends up being Bobby Lashley, and the conquering hero out of all of this is your latest, most successful NXT call-up, and that is your new world champion, Carmelo Hayes. These are just some spitball ideas. I'd really like to know what you guys think of them in the box below. If you think it's trash, let me know. If you think there's something better that I could add or subtract, if you think there's more details that I've missed or missed out or gotten wrong or whatever the case may be, this is what I do with this fantasy booking stuff. I just toss some ideas together. There's literally a scratch pad in front of me about like who could fight who could fight who could fight who could fight who. Oh, you're going for mid-card titles? That means you can face all of these people. Carmelo Hayes is the prime example of that. Carmelo Hayes is the best thing on NXT by a long shot and could very well bring that entire element to the main roster. And ultimately, if you want to break kayfabe for a second, ultimately Bobby Lashley uses all the credit that he already has built up to put 5 other people over on his way out. That's not a bad career. That's not a bad career spent. I think all this would be great. Do I think any of it's going to happen? No, I don't. Especially after what we saw at SummerSlam this past week. I'd really like to know what you guys think. That's all I've got to say. I've been Spaz, your YWC Reality Check. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation. Keep all of these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I will talk each and every last one of you later, but for right now, I am tagging out.